Welcome back all. Like the first one, this segment commences with a startup session 2. Please warmly welcome UX Solutions Vincent Hoffmann. Vincent runs a company specialized in the handling of survey data with the emphasis on correct data interpretation for UXO-related surveys. Quote, for UX Solutions, quality is not an act, it is a habit, end quote. So, Vincent, let's see that creature of habit of yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for letting me attend this conference. I hope everybody can hear me clearly. My name is Vincent. I'm an exploration engineer. I started company UX in 2017. We are sitting in Austin. We have an expanding portfolio within the recent years, and we are aiming national and international market offshore. We also work with the emphasis laying on offshore for the moment.
Vincent, just one thing, if you could speak a bit slower because there's some sort of overlap and your words just go into the background or we don't hear them also. Just maybe something with the internet connection, but for the audience to understand you fully. Thank you.
No problem. We are situated in Ostend, Belgium, in the Ostend Science Park. Here you can see of our offices, which is part of the Ghent University and is situated in the port of Flanders, Belgium. And there are other companies present, but mainly the offices and laboratories for Ghent University. As stated, we are a technical consulting and bureau company, and also the UXO knowledge. We do mainly consulting, management, and project support for different clients. Our clients being Boskalis, Noord, Demi, the dredging company, and also energy companies like RTE, EDF, 50 Hertz, Tenet. For the moment, we are mainly on the French market because the French market offshore for the farms is a full development. We are also in the Baltics and the German market for the moment. I hear trouble. I will try to. So, our main clients are situated in the oil and gas, renewable energy, offshore resources, the government, and engineering consultancy. You can see some examples from the last Belgium offshore risk we have been supporting for the UX problems. And on the left, you can see some aeroplanes cleared with ROVs during cable laying and foundations. We are also consulted for grounds, like the Baltic region is very famous also for the Baltic sites after the war, post-war. And again, examples from clearance with offshore projects. The main techniques we use for what our clients are metrics. On the right bottom, you can see the Hoffmann region with metric targets. You can see the data. We consult the data, and we come to target, and at the end, we try to remove or neutralize those on projects. That is done with console-based beam surveys, bottom drilling, diving operations, and remotely operated vehicles or ROVs, which are probably well. In the end, so to take the risk and liability for our customers, which is very important for our customers. We do that through desktop studies and in-depth risk assessments. We do this according to the client scope of work and their requirements, and we speak with their departments, and then we give client recommendations for the risk and liability, and we are also for the liability. Short introduction of our company, for which I thank you again, and I hope we can soon Poland. Stay safe. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Vincent, please stick around for the reminder of our event.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are proceeding to Davy Termote. Davy manages the near and onshore business unit of GEOxyz. He is also company director and co-owner of GeoMetalWorks. Davy has experience in business management consulting too. Davy, if you could be so kind and draw us nearer to your company. We can see your screen, but we don't hear you. Davy, are you with us? Okay, we are facing some technical difficulties. I can see you.
And can you hear me now?
Splendid.
Okay.
Let's get this show on.
Yes. So I am Davy from the company GEOxyz. We deliver data for our clients in the offshore renewable energy, oil and gas industry and infrastructure. We do it on a safe way with an excellent team, state-of-the-art equipment, and 23 vessels. Our CEO, Patrick Reintjes, founded the company in 1999, and we started with a topographic company, which went slowly from nearshore to the offshore industry and delivering data from the seabed and all of other data. We do it with three sorts of assets: people, equipment, and vessels, which delivers the data. We are 240 people, 15 nationalities, and the meridian of age is 30 years. We have like engineers, geographs, oceanographs, topographs, and sailing personnel. These are our assets, our boats. We have inland vessels to offshore support vessels, and we do we measure all kind of data offshore. The data acquisition we do now, our clients ask it to do it in a greener way or in a different way, and this is how we're going to do it. So we're going to reduce the CO2 and the NOx footprint. We will do it on a safer way, less risk for the environment, less people offshore, and we will do it for a lower cost, more centralized and smaller vessels. We have a solution for it. It's the water drone. It's an unmanned surface vehicle, which we will build or have already built, and we were working to an automation of delivering data. This consists of 3 steps. First, we will do it on a remote control. Then we will have automatic sailing. And at the end, we will have autonomous sailing. For the moment, we have already our remote controlled vehicles offshore. I can very shortly show you some. This is how impossible for a skipper to do this in a safe way and in a controlled way, but we are already managing to do it on an automatic pilot with our small surface vehicles. We are working on the autonomous sailing by predictability. We are working on artificial intelligence of recognizing boats and people at sea to have to avoid objects in the sea. For the moment, we already have some drones working in harbors. That's a 1.8 meter autonomous surface vehicle. In the past, we needed to have big cranes and very dangerous operations to get some boats into the water. Now you see on the left side, we have some smaller surface vehicles which are launched on a safer way. We also have the 2.8 meter, which is already working in bigger sea states. And we are working on a 6.8 meter drone to go offshore. This will be launched from a mothership. This is also a requirement from the client to do it on a green and a safer way. This is a survey vessel, and it's fully diesel electric. So it's a much greener way to act as a platform for our drones. To have the crew transfers towards the platform, we also are working on a greener CTV on hydrogen. This is a European project we are working on. I'm gonna shortly tell you about the future challenges. So there will be some practical challenges, a control room where all the drones will be monitored. Another challenge is the launching system of a drone, docking stations, and the international laws, which are not there always. The future of data acquisition, data collection will be easier, new sensors, automatic acquisition, unmanned data collection platforms, and big data. That's a big challenge because we have a lot of data, also data we don't need at this moment. So I think this was, in short, my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Splendid. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Great. We are now moving to the main course of the second segment. Please kindly welcome Angelica Kemene. Angelica holds a bachelor's degree in Maritime Studies and Finance from the University of Piraeus and a master's in Mathematical Trading and Finance from the University of London's Business School City. She started her career as research assistant at her alma mater, from where she moved to the role of commercial shipping analyst at Falcon Navigation Trafigura Becher. Angelica was also part of the market surveillance and technical support team at the Baltic Exchange, worked as dry freight and basic resource analyst at ICIP, and as investor relations specialist with Montenegro Capital Market Advisors. In 2019, she founded Optima-X, the mission of which is to build a maritime tech hub that generates and supports new concepts, start and scale ups. Angelica has also started the #5PillarStrong initiative that aims to create an international cross-collaboration platform to achieve growth in sustainability and innovation in the maritime space. Angelica, please kindly tell us what trends will pull to or push away the maritime from the optimum.
Okay, great. Thanks for giving me the floor. I believe everybody is able to hear me now. So I will start by greeting you. So, dear all, it's actually a pleasure to be here with you today, and I would like to say thanks to the organizers for inviting me and giving me the chance to say some words about the global trends in the shipping industry, as well as the green transition in this wonderful ocean-going business. The impact of the societal response to the COVID-19 threat risks was having damaging impacts on all aspects of our economies, and we are still trying to figure out the possible outcomes. While the threat to the elderly and those with existing underlying conditions should not be downplayed, the extensive restrictions, travel bans, and limitations to freedoms as we seek to slow the spread of the virus with the vaccination do threaten our very livelihoods. The period of isolation, the lack of physical meetings, and the home working has been made possible by the digital transformation of society. We have faster broadband speeds, digital programs, and cloud systems, as well as a plethora of online meeting and webinar apps at our disposal. We have shown them ourselves the potential of digitalization and connectivity in our hours of need. Meanwhile, we hear of reports that this period of restraint has already had positive impacts on pollution and emissions. As the expression goes, every cloud has a silver lining. We hold it to ourselves to continue our efforts to create sustainable business practices, push further with innovation, and create a dynamic future for ourselves. This is an ideal opportunity to demonstrate the vitality and strength of innovation in world trade, to show that the silver lining we see in the impact of the coronavirus response can be developed into a bright light of opportunity. This response is likely to have a lengthy impact on shipping and our industries. It will thus influence investment and collaboration, but it does not mean it has to stop. This is the time for innovators to think strong and think together. It is the time to work together more collaboratively to realize the potential that will come out of this testing time of difficulty. Shipping and maritime clusters around the world have already shown the strength in collaborative thinking and looking for synergies. We need all our clusters to think positively and dynamically. A successful cluster is made up of 5 pillars: the established industrial businesses that drive industry, the funds and finance houses that can support and benefit from dynamic growth, academia which supports innovative thinking and next generation development, government institutions that create the framework conditions for innovation and growth, and the entrepreneurial companies and individuals that think outside the box and have the agility to seize the opportunities. These 5 pillars need to listen, discuss, and find out how they can support each other under a new normal and all those emerging global trends in shipping and its green transition. As an accelerator and developer of dynamic innovation hubs in traditional markets, we have seen how these 5 pillars have worked successfully in the past, but the time to talk needs to become the time for solid action. We need each pillar to connect constructively with each of the other 4 and ensure the conditions remain sound and capable of growth. Only this way can we turn the silver lining into a bright light of opportunity. 2020 has been the most difficult year for generations, with the global pandemic causing disruption to everyone's everyday life. Yet while COVID-19 has been a negative, unsettling force in countless ways, it has also accelerated some key megatrends, including decarbonization and digitalization, bringing a sharper focus on the possibility of a greener economic recovery. For many of us, it's clear that the years ahead are a time for action. This means active participation in an industry-wide collaboration to drive the necessary change. We all need to acknowledge for our ways of living, how our ways of living affects our planet, and for stakeholders in the maritime industry, decarbonizing the maritime industry is a key priority. Transitioning our industry to net zero comes with challenges. The technology exists. We can build the ships, but we need to move from pilots and prototypes to commercially viable deep-sea vessels. It will be costly, heavily dependent on research and development, and require stakeholders from across the supply chain to address the land-side infrastructural requirements. For shipping to invest in zero-carbon tonnage, it needs clarity on future fuels, fuel costs and availability, as well as regulatory certainty that the decisions of today won't be penalized in the years to come. We all know that there will be multiple solutions for the industry to consider as it forges a path to a clean energy future. To support this transition, our industry needs trusted advice, information, expertise, and thought leadership. The journey ahead is unlikely to be straightforward or easy, but the agility and adaptability that has been so abundant in the maritime sector in recent months is a reason for optimism. We are resilient people. We know how and when to join forces, and we have encountered similar propulsion revolutions before. We also have the strength and persistence to secure this change, as we know it will secure a better, greener tomorrow for us all. If 2020 had one major effect on the shipping industry, it was that it accelerated the pace of digital technology innovation and adoption. The logistic challenges posed by the pandemic emphasized the need for better data collection systems to improve coordination between vessels and ports. Social distancing and public health measures also required the adoption of digital alternatives to paper customs documentation. The threat of cyber attack brought up its head as both CMA CGM and MSC were hit with malware attacks, underscoring the need for better cybersecurity across the industry. While the specific challenges of 2020 prompted the adoption of more digital technology within the industry, we should expect this to persist into 2021 and beyond. Nonetheless, the shipping industry is continually changing and adapting to meet the needs of the commercial marketplace so that it can become more competitive and cost-effective. It is a huge and complex industry which is constantly being affected by global trends and by advances in technology, materials, and fuels. So, some 6 future trends that perfectly illustrate some of the dynamic changes that are happening in the shipping industry and the new opportunities that these create for marine manufacturing businesses are digital censorship, bigger megaships, greener shipping, LNG as a fuel, solar and wind power for ships, and Seabourn CCS technology. First, digital censoring. The technology for monitoring and optimizing ship operations and performance has been steadily increasing in its sophistication. Ships of the future will have a complete network of sensors to measure all aspects of operations, including detecting faults and identifying areas needing maintenance or repair, and eventually leading to CO2 emission reductions. Allied to these, increasingly powerful ship-to-shore communications will mean that most aspects of the ship's operation can be controlled by a land-based team of fleet managers. Second, bigger megaships. Improvements in ship technology, structure, and materials will lead to even bigger megaships, particularly within the container shipping industry. Delivered in April 2020, the HMM Algeciras is the world's largest container ship. It measures 400 meters long, and for comparison, the Shipbuilding in London is 310 meters tall. So this giant ship will carry up to 24,000 TEU containers. Manufacturers will seek to take advantage of the lower transport costs that this vessel can provide by gearing their production to make the most efficient use of this container space. HMM plans to enhance its environmental capabilities by operating newly launched 20 container ships. The vessels are basically equipped with a scrubber system in preparation for IMO 2020 environmental regulation. Optimized hull design and highly efficient engine are also expected to improve energy efficiency and reduce carbon emissions. Third, greener shipping. There is a constant pressure to reduce the carbon footprint in the world shipping fleets, and this will only increase in the future. A whole host of technologies are being explored, including low carbon fuels, more streamlined hulls, more efficient propeller design, improved voyage planning to make savings on fuels, better hull coatings, and even air cushions to reduce friction. Fourth, liquefied natural gas as fuel. There is a growing interest in the potential of LNG as a fuel for commercial shipping. Those who support LNG believe it can help operators to meet their targets for reduced emissions while also being competitive on price. CO2 emissions have been reduced by up to 25% when compared with diesel engines. While conventional oil-based fuels will continue to dominate in the near future, there is likely to be increased adoption of LNG for specialist vessels, which gives an opportunity for the technology to be proved and developed on a larger scale and basically act as the fuel solution between today and future alternative fuels. Decarbonization cannot stop with LNG or any other fossil fuel resource. To reach carbon neutrality, we need bigger CO2 reductions. It is highly likely that the future belongs to synthetic carbon-free fuels generated from renewable energy. On this road, LNG is not a dead-end investment, it's an investment into the future, as all such engines can run on carbon-free fuels without further technical adaptations. Fifth, it's the solar and wind power for ships. The shipping industry is exploring renewable energy to power the fleets of the future. Some of this technology is already being trialed and tested. The Turainer Planet Solar is a catamaran powered by 29,000 solar cells, which has successfully circumnavigated the globe. However, the likeliest application for this technology in commercial shipping will be systems that reduce fuel consumption by supplementing the existing power supply with onboard wind turbines and or solar panels. Sixth, we have the Seabourn Ccs Solutions. Recent high-level reports have tagged carbon capture and storage, which is CCS, as critical for achieving the UN's global emission reduction goals, with the maritime transport of CO2 emerging as an essential link in the decarbonization chain. The efficient transport of CO2 by ship could open up new industrial markets for the plentiful but sometimes problematic byproducts. A good example of the above is the Northern Lights project that shows the way to Seabourn CCS Solutions. Northern Lights is a joint cooperation project between Equinor, Shell, and Total, while DNVGL has provided technical support. The project encompasses the capture of CO2 from cement production and a waste-to-energy plant in the Oslo Fjord region, and the shipping of liquefied CO2 from these sites to an onshore terminal on the Norwegian west coast. From there, the liquefied CO2 will be transported by pipeline to a subsea storage location in the North Sea for permanent storage. Now, deep diving into maritime regulation and sustainability, 2021 is sure to be a big year for regulators. The Maritime Environmental Protection Committee agreed to amendments to the IMO regulations, which will result in big changes if adopted. Notably, the amendments would involve a public rating system for vessel efficiency, as well as require owners to cut vessel emissions by 40% from 2008 levels by 2030. While the amendments have been agreed, the decision on whether they will really be adopted will come in 2021 at the MEPC 76. Another big change could come in 2021 is the inclusion of vessels owners in the EU emission trading scheme. In order to meet their emission goals, the EU has been evaluating implementing a carbon trading market for shippers operating in the EU. This major change could take effect as soon as January 1st of 2022, and while the details of the legislation remain unclear, this is one trend to keep a close eye on as more information is released over the following months. the first regulations designed to support the IMO's greenhouse gas reduction targets are on the near horizon, but there are more regulatory hurdles to consider. Other environmental issues and an increasing number of stricter local regulation are contributing to an increased complexity. The maritime industry is facing several upcoming environmental regulations in addition to the broad range already in place. The general self-perception of the industry is that it has done a tremendous job in achieving compliance with, for example, ballast water regulation and more recently the global sulfur 0.5 cap. While this is true, even tougher challenges lie ahead. The IMO greenhouse gas strategy has been agreed, and the first tranche of regulations intended to fulfill its goals is under discussion at the IMO. Of importance are the proposal for EEXI or EEDI for existing ships and enhanced ship energy efficiency management plan. These are proposed separately by distinct groups of countries and are intended to ensure that the greenhouse gas strategy's 2030 goals are achieved by having new regulations become effective by end 2022 latest. Note that even though these are technically challenging proposals, they are only a first step. More is expected to come. Efforts to encourage the development of carbon-neutral fuels are particularly critical, as these are absolutely crucial if shipping is going to achieve its 2050 goals, as well as the ultimate goal of becoming carbon neutral. Some stakeholders are increasingly of the view that a key component in finding commercially viable alternative fuel solutions is to impose market-based measures. The EU in particular, with its new and greener European Parliament and Commission elected last year, added to the political pressure for even more rapid action at the IMO by establishing the European Green Deal. One of the key policy proposals in the EU is including shipping in the European emission trading system, which will certainly add complexities to the nascent market-based mechanism discussion at the IMO. The shipping industry will need to adapt to significantly stricter greenhouse gas-related regulations. This will likely further drive a shift towards lower sailing speeds, alternative fuels, and an even greater uptake of efficiency technologies. From a business perspective, the consequence of increasingly tightened performance standards on the competitiveness of old tonnage versus new should not be underestimated and will need to be considered when designing new ships. For example, the future-proofing vessels will become even more critical than it already is. But how then to achieve the maritime energy transition? To complete the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in maritime shipping, ship owners, regulatory agencies, and builders need to follow multiple tracks to meet 2050 goals, from electric batteries for shoreline activity to a variety of fuels like LNG, methanol, LPG, and ethane, as well as alternative fuels like ammonia, synthetic methane, and green hydrogen. Maritime energy transition requires more than just one solution and more than one investor. Negotiators in Paris deliberately left shipping, which accounts for 2.2% of global CO2 emissions, out of the climate agreement struck in December 2015. Instead, it was left to the IMO to start the industry's course towards decarbonization and to compel ship owners to invest in the next generation of low-carbon ships and fuels. If the maritime sector is to successfully transition to zero-carbon fuels in time to do its part to slow climate change, action must begin today. Ships launched in 2030 will still be at sea in 2050, when, according to an IMO strategy adopted in April 2018, the sector is to have reduced its total annual greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50%. For ship owners, compliance with the IMO's low sulfur fuel rules, while a logistical challenge, was relatively straightforward. With time to prepare, they switched to diesel oil and ultra-low sulfur fuel oil, or installed scrubbers to remove emissions at the stack. Decarbonization will be much harder. Ship owners will have to pursue two complementary tracks at once, boosting efficiency to reduce fuel burn and switching to carbon-free fuels. But where to begin again? The first track encompasses solutions like waste heat recovery systems and batteries for hybrid solutions, up-to-date propeller systems, and optimized pumps. The second track includes a dizzying menu of options, legacy fossil-based fuels like LNG, methanol, LPG, and ethane, as well as alternative fuels like ammonia, synthetic methane, and green hydrogen. Different low-carbon solutions will be a better fit for different applications, be it nearshore or on the open sea. Nearshore ferries and tugboats will be able to transition to battery electric propulsion. For ocean-going container ships and tankers, electrification could be a good solution in terms of optimizing the fuel efficiency, but it can never be the main propulsion for a big container ship or a big tanker. The energy density in batteries is insufficient. Developing carbon-free fuels for the largest ocean-going ships will require the use of incentives and restrictions. Today, alternative fuels, when available, come at a price premium compared to dirtier, carbon-intensive fuels. A price signal established by a global market-based instrument is needed to discourage the use of carbon-based fuels. Despite greenhouse gas and air emissions being core issues for shipping and subject to significant attention by regulators, it is important to note that there are other environmental issues that are becoming more prevalent on the radar of policymakers and regulators. In the wake of the implementation of the Ballast Water Management Convention, there is a growing realization of the need to also deal with the alien invasive species that are traveling on the hull. As a consequence, IMO work has commenced on reviewing and most likely strengthening the existing biofueling guideline. In practical terms, we expect the work eventually, most likely before 2025, to result in a mandatory regulations, probably in the shape of some form of hull cleanliness requirement. Plastic pollution is rightfully seen as a global problem that needs urgent action. IMO has agreed on a comprehensive action plan with all actions intended to be completed by 2025. For most ships, we do not expect significant direct impact on vessels, as there is of course an absolute prohibition on discharging garbage, including plastics, to the ocean. Lost fishing gear is an area of focus, but is of course not an issue for merchant shipping. However, questions remained regarding grey water as a potential source of microplastics. While the scientific jury is still out on whether ships are a significant source, it should be realized that any regulation established to address this could have potentially significant impact on at least some shipping segments. Underwater noise has been on the IMO's agenda for a long time, driven by the concern that ship noise may have a detrimental impact on a broad range of sea life. IMO guidance was issued in 2014, and some countries have been particularly active in engaging in studies and knowledge building. While the IMO is presently at a stage of monitoring research and conducting studies into the issue, it is not inconceivable that proposal for at least area-specific control measures may be forthcoming from member states. This could range from proposals for speed reductions, as lower speeds means less noise in general, to proposal for noise emission standards. From a shipping perspective, the first option should be relatively simple to manage, while the latter could be more challenging. Meantime, there is a general increasing tendency towards local regulations around the world, whether in region or ports. These are generally in response to local needs and concerns, and not least influenced by local politics. Unsurprisingly, there is limited regard to international politics and regulation in these local domestic decision-making processes, despite the impact it may have on international trading ships. We think that an international business needs international regulations, and that while the appearance of local regulation is in many cases understandable, we would very much prefer the IMO to be the key arbiter in this process. Given what I tried to summarize for you all today, I believe we all understand how vital it is for all stakeholders to collaborate and work together towards this transition period. A very wise man once said, we may have all come on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. Let's all act collectively for the best of our planet and for the best of our industry. Thank you very much for listening all this time.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Angelica,
Thank you.
throughout presentation. Now, we will be meeting each other during the panel debate, so maybe one question now only. Your gut feeling about the whole thing. Do we have, as an industry, the sea shipping industry, what it takes to make the green transition come true? Because truth be told, I remember, for example, a report from the American Bureau of Shipping on all the technologies devised to make that happen. And the report was very, very sad that even with the fairly speedy adoption of the best technologies, we won't hit the green goal on the head. And on the other hand, you have the findings from the International Transport Forum about the container shipping industry, especially the alliances which aren't very much occupied with the efficiency of the whole supply chain, but they are occupied with their bottom line and doing everything to cut their costs. Economy being the focal point, energy, ecology, environment friendliness being something on the side, good to have from a PR standpoint.
Well, what I believe, I hope you don't hear me twice. Okay, yeah. What I believe is that actually, of course, there are many projects and many developments on technologies within companies, either in fossil fuel companies like Exxon or in other bigger commercial shipping companies, that they try to collaborate with either academia or entrepreneurs in what they try to bring a greener shipping environment. Well, research and development doesn't happen in a day, and it needs a lot of time to be processed. And even if governments actually jump into funds like state funds or regulatory funds, so even if we have the money to produce to promote R&D, it will be again hard to drive actually technology faster. I hope that we will be able in 2050 to reach all those goals, because on the other hand, I believe that technology moves fast in a way, and once it starts, it never stops. So I think that it's very positive that we see regulators, countries such as the USA today just saying that they will commit for the first time to what the IMO is trying to do. Then we saw the UK including shipping into its carbon taxation system. China will do it later. The European Commission will vote for that this coming June. So I think that since there are regulatory movements, everything will come and will happen.
Okay, great. we'll leave it there, waiting for the panel debate. But first we have another presentation. Let me introduce Paweł Wróbel. Paweł is a sought-after professional as regards EU regulatory affairs, energy, climate, and environmental policies, as well as EU budgeting. Altogether, 15 years of Brussels work under his belt. He is the former director of the Polish Electricity Association. Prior to that, he had worked for the European Commission and for a member of the European Parliament. Currently, Paweł is head of the Gate Brussels consultancy. So, Paweł, like a bull at the gate, please crash it with your presentation.
Thank you, Przemysław. Thank you very much, and I'm very glad that I can be with you. I must say that I need to congratulate the organizers and the participants so far. It's really extremely interesting conference, and I'm happy to be here with you. As I will have a role to present the platform Baltic Wind. This is, in fact, it will be pre-official launch, as the official launch is scheduled already on May, so very soon. However, I'm very glad to present what is behind this innovative platform. I will start with some numbers. First of all, 93 gigawatts by 2050. This is a huge potential of the offshore on the Baltic Sea for 8 member states, EU member states, with more or less the same regulatory framework. European Union's framework for development of the offshore projects, which means that this is a really huge potential for the first of all cooperation, and second of all building a local content for the supply chain, and we are. Within the Baltic Wind, we want to address this challenge, which means that the cooperation between all member states and all relevant stakeholders is really needed to take advantage of this huge potential. So, local content we see from the perspective of the entire Baltic Sea. Not only from one particular market or one or another particular investment, but from this huge potential which I mentioned about a moment ago. And we see that there is a need to have a platform for cooperation and exchange of informations, of best practices between all stakeholders. Also, in order to develop offshore as a win-win for all member states and for all participants which will or should take part in this huge scale of investments, including local communities and SMEs from all Baltic Sea countries. So what is Baltic Wind about? It's about news, about insight and networking. The structure of the BalticWind.EU is built on the basis of the best knowledge of newses which are coming from the offshore sector, with high-level reports and analysis, and especially with the focus for best case studies and best case scenarios for development of projects in all member states. We are open for your contribution. First of all, for contribution from journalists from countries those countries which are in the Baltic Sea, but not only, especially for those who are dealing with offshore investments in Baltic countries. We are open for experts, professionals working on offshore investments and offshore projects. We open our place for your contribution, your experience and your ideas, your reports. This is also our focus on some kind of series of workshops we would like to organize with our partners from Baltic Sea countries. We are very open for deep and open cooperation with partners. And last but not least, we see that there is a huge need to build a place, to have a place where all investors may find good people for their investments. So we are open for offshore job at our platform. All is dedicated to the Baltic offshore investment and development. Therefore, as one of our first step before the official launch, we call for journalists from Baltic countries and those who are dealing with Baltic investments and experts, professionals to join our BalticWind network. And I deeply encourage you to join us, as it will be a huge added value, I hope, not only for us, but also for all members of this network. As I said, official launch is scheduled for May, so very soon, and I hope we can meet together already in May. For any questions, I'm happy to answer via chat, or you can find us on our website, on the LinkedIn and Twitter accounts. And I'm really happy to be with you today. And I hope that the debate which is coming in a moment will be inspired also by this pan-Baltic perspective. And I wish you all a good, fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paweł. What can I add? Fair winds, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for your initiative to bear fruit. Thank you very much. Stick around for the expert panel debate. Let me introduce the persons who will be partaking. Angelica is already on board with us. We have Magdalena Jabłonowska. Magdalena, a master in international law from the University of Warsaw and a holder of an executive MBA from the Gdańsk Foundation for Management Development and the Erasmus University's Rotterdam School of Management, currently works for Lotos Petrobaltic as Maritime representative, head of safety and environmental protection office. She joined the company from the Polish Ministry of Transport, Construction and Maritime Economy, where Magdalena was director of the Maritime Transport and Shipping Safety Department, member of the Vista Poland board, and a member of the Search and Rescue Council. I'm also in jubilant mood to onboard Dorota Bastrikin. Dorota holds a master's degree in marine biology and biological oceanography, as well as PhD in marine sciences. In 2012, she joined BMT as environmental consultant, working her way up to the post of senior and now principal environmental consultant. Dorota has expert experience in project management of oil and gas and marine renewable energy operations, as well as environmental impact, risk, and comparative assessment. She's also an expert in the marine growth assessment on offshore installations, with project experience covering the North Irish and Mediterranean seas, as well as waters of Brazil, West Africa, and Philippines coast. During her service for the Scottish government, she was a member of a working group developing marine protected areas in the North Sea. Before we start, a quick side note though. This panel has a gender inequality issue, which in this case is more than welcome. In the forthcoming installment of the Baltic Transport Journal, we'll have an extensive article on gender inequality in the transport sector, including the reasons and ways to diversify transport to the benefit of women in particular and the industry in general. Moreover, the highest praise should go to Starter and Anna Miller, who has been unmatched in her actions to surface all the brave women from across the transport and logistics domain. Kudos, Anna. Now back to the topic at hand. Are you all with me? Great, savvy. Magdalena, Lotos Petrobaltic is a company preoccupied with hydrocarbons. At the same time, there's a slow yet steady transition towards fossil-free energy carriers with buzzwords like green hydrogen or ammonia or electric vehicles flying in the air more and more often. Some energy companies, including oil and gas, want to be part of that movement. What is Lotos Petrobaltic's response to what will be, should be, the future of energy, Poland and Europe-wise?
Thank you. Well, due to the climate changes, a switch to the environmental friendly power production, it seems not only to be a challenge, but also a need nowadays. But what is important to remember is to strike a balance between green and conventional energy, especially at the initial phase. We as a Lotos Petrobaltic want to use all our available potential and experience to implement new solutions, innovative solutions, to participate in this energy transformation. Lotos Petrobaltic is typically known as typical oil and gas company exploring and extracting hydrocarbons located in the Baltic Sea. But our strategy assumes to take part in the development of the offshore wind farm market in Poland, which is growing quite rapidly right now. So we would like to take the position of a national operator in the incoming race in the years in the construction and commissioning and servicing of offshore wind farms. Therefore, right now we are implementing a plan for the construction of a, let's say, green fleet of the vessels for the construction of such wind farms. And we already provide the logistics to our offshore platforms using the PSV vessels, but we would like to extend our fleet with the typical vessels for the maintenance and operations for the offshore wind farms. And also another project that we are working on just to be in line with this transformation is to develop and produce so-called green hydrogen by constructing close to our offshore platform a floating wind turbine, which will enable us to reduce the gas consumption. And we are also working on the geological sequestration of carbon dioxide on the company's concessions. So, well, as I mentioned, few of the projects, I can assure that we are fully aware of these climate changes challenges, and we are ready for this transformation, which I believe that it's not only a challenge, but also a need nowadays. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Now, Dorota, you have been involved in the British offshore market for some time now. Once associated with oil fields, now the UK is spearheading the development of the offshore wind energy market with plans to have 40 gigawatts of installed capacity by 2030, including the world's strongest wind farm, the 3.6 gigawatt Dogger Bank wind farm. A penny for your thoughts on the green transition too, but maybe from the perspective of how going from dirty to clean energy changes the industry and the entire environment/ecosystem that caters to the new needs. I mean, business, research and development, employment, studying and training, etc.
So this transition is happening on the multiple levels. Traditional oil and gas companies, they started to diversify their portfolio and go into transition into green energy by investing into wind farms. This also is seen in the changes of the names of the big players when they change them, so they are not implying the connection only with the traditional oil and gas activities. The oil and gas sector is heavily involved into driving forward the low carbon technologies to help to reach the net zero targets. So furthermore, the government, oil and gas industry and the oil and gas authority, they work together to strike the so-called North Sea Transitional Deal, which was announced very recently. It is a response to a full realization that the climate emergency which we are living in and the need to go green is happening. It acknowledges that the transition isn't as simple as to stop using the fossil fuels and move into renewables. The transition requires the need to meet the energy needs during that transition when the new technologies are being developed, and assure that the possible measures, all possible measures are taken to reduce emissions from continued mining of the fossil fuels and during this transition, so all the energy needs are satisfied. And all these efforts are dedicated to one goal: to cut emissions by half by 2030 and to achieve the net zero by 2050. Some of that is already happening in the UK. For example, only in 2020, the flaring emissions were cut by 22%. So, but there is still a lot to be done. And to reach these ambitious targets, cooperation between the industry, the government, and the research institutes is necessary. And this is already happening. And the deal is facilitating that. It also recognizes that 270,000 jobs in the UK depend on currently on oil and gas industry, and the people who serve in these jobs, they cannot be forgotten. So the new jobs, the new mechanisms have to be created to safeguard the jobs in the sector, with funding of the training opportunities and creating new skilled jobs.
Mm-hmm. Is offshore wind energy a political thing in the UK in general and in Scotland in particular? Because I can recall that during the last independence vote in Scotland, the revenues from the oil fields were the main talking point. Has something changed? Is Westminster and Edinburgh on the same page in this regard?
Well, I am not the politician to comment in depth on that one, but I can tell you just from the perspective of the person who worked in the sector that there is huge realization. There's a huge drive to kind of go green and not to be kind of left behind for oil and gas industry. So it's more for oil and gas industry to become green industry. Not so much to kind of, close all the big companies and for people to lose jobs, but for those companies to actually be the big players who will be investing in green energy. And there's definitely a huge drive for that.
Has Brexit changed anything in this regard? We're talking, for example, about the European Green Deal and the heavy chunks of money that are on the table, and I recall asking the former Transport Commissioner Violeta Bulls many times what will happen to the TNT corridor that goes through the UK should Brexit become reality. I didn't receive any substantial answer. So now when Brexit has hit the fan, did it change anything?
Well, Brexit definitely a great concern for all the companies, and it's a big unknown. I think the real impact of Brexit will be is to be seen, really. Definitely the mechanisms are being put in place to to help, but I cannot answer fully how the industry is going to cope without Europe. I believe that there will be talks to have quite tight relations regardless the Brexit. I cannot see this any other way.
Okay, thank you. Angelica, you have talked a lot about all those different initiatives aimed at greening the maritime business and offshore. If we could dig a bit deeper, what are the biggest barriers out and inside the industry that will prevent the sector from becoming more sustainable, and what would be the tools with which these challenges could be handled?
Okay, so yes, worldwide agreements are well ahead of where the industry is at the moment, and those are actually the driving force for the green transition in shipping. We had the Paris Agreement that formed the requirements for our planet to become sustainable, and then the EU, along with the IMO, have taken steps to push those requirements into the shipping sector as well. We have very demanding requirements, as we have all agreed here, for net zero to 2050. And today we read, as I mentioned earlier, that the US will commit to the efforts from the IMO, which is great news, as the US and Saudi Arabia were a bit hesitant with those regulations, if I may. So that said, it sets the scene for what is going to happen. The whole industry is moving towards a greener industry environment, and all stakeholders already work for that. Definitely the regulations imposed from the EU or the IMO are of great importance and set the foundation and the requirements for what the industry needs to do. But all those initiatives driven by industry clusters, such as the Poseidon Principles and the Sea Cargo Charter, also play a role into driving commercial shipping emissions reductions into reality, albeit a small one. So what I would like to stress as not exactly barrier is that the IMO has set some sets of KPIs that will lead the way towards reductions. Those are differentiated between design KPIs linked to the physical design and technical specifications of a vessel and its subsequent fuel efficiency potential based on various trials or analytical methods, and the operational KPIs, which are linked to the way a vessel is operated, with speed being the most significant factor. For the dry bulk, tanker and gas carrier markets, if a vessel is put on a time charter, the charterers such as Cargill, Bunge, Total, Trafigura have full operational control of the vessel. So that includes speed, route, and destination. So the registered owner simply provides the vessel and crew, who are instructed actually by the charterer. So voyage charters are single voyage agreements. I'm sorry that I'm explaining those two technical things between registered owners and charterers, and contracts of affreightments are it's a series, let's say, of consecutive voyage charters. So these financial terms for these agreements are expressed on a per ton rather than on a per day basis. And they are an exception, as in both cases, the ship owner can control operational factors. And that's something that we should look at. And in the meantime, it is highly likely that the EU, through its ETS system and according to the Green Deal, is going actually to tax the bunker buyer. So it's the same again, as I said before, the design versus the operational KPIs. So I think that we will need broad collaboration, and as Dorota said, just to protect among the stakeholders, to protect profit margins for all, and to promote open innovation, and of course R&D from different funds. That's it.
Sure, thank you.
Sure.
What's your take on the inclusion of shipping in the EU emission trading scheme?
If I agree or disagree. I think either if I agree or disagree, this is something that's going to happen. We are in talks with the European Commission, and we know that, as I said, it's very likely that they are going to tax the bunker buyer. So shipping will be included in the European ETS. I know that the EU will promote collaboration with the IMO, who is actually the main body for the commercial shipping, to regulate everything that happens, and that's something very positive. I'm only afraid if countries among the world have their own policy and not one central policy. I mean, we need to have one central instead of many local ones.
Who has the upper hand in deciding on green ship investment? The owner or the charter? I believe it's a mixed picture, because if you, for example, take Finland's or Grimaldi, they are ordering eco-efficient ships to axe their costs. But what about the greater charter segment market?
So, well, previously, sometimes, I mean, container lines could make agreements beforehand with the shippers. At the moment, we can say this is true for the bulk carriers and the tanker sector. So I think who has the upper hand? I think the upper hand is on the regulator and not even on the charterer or on the owner. But they have to figure out how they are going to work towards making the design figures greener or the operational figures greener. And I think we all work for that. Great.
Thank you very much. Magdalena, I believe we have a question to you from the audience. From Marian Krzaklewski. He asks, have you carried out already an anticipatory study on the demand for offshore specialized industrial ship, and especially in the light of ordering such a vessel from a Polish shipyard?
Yes, we are taking part in the market of the offshore wind farms, and we have conducted, let's say, the study of what's the needs, and we also have our own, as I explained, experience in this field. Right now, we are operating over 30 years on the Polish exclusive economic zone, ensuring, let's say, logistics for our offshore vessels, offshore platforms, and having our offshore supply vessels, and we have the studies on the what kind of vessels are needed, and not only for the construction, like heavy lift vessels or jackup vessels, but also the vessels for the maintenance and operation, like crew vessels or the offshore supply vessels as well. So yes, but the details needs to be directed, to my technical departments in the Lotos Petrobaltic. I cannot say about the details of this, but I know that we are already in this project. So it's not that it's just the idea, but we are working on that.
Great, thank you so much. Dorota, a question to you. The European Green Deal is much more than just exchanging one energy carrier for other. Environment-wise, it's also about biodiversity. You're an expert in marine biology and marine sciences. How can we as humanity progress with our green agenda and at the same time do something good for the agenda of other species? Specifically, what is the marine growth potential of modern offshore installations? What are the factors that come into play in this area? And can you share any success stories of industrial development going hand in hand with protecting or even increasing biodiversity?
Yes. Maybe first I will just very shortly say what marine growth is. They are the marine creatures which can establish themselves on the underwater structures. So this will be the anemones, various mussels, algae, tubworms, sea squirts, hydroids, anything which will want to attach itself and grow on the underwater structure is a marine growth. So the answer to your question can be the only one, and this potential for marine growth is huge. Of course, in many cases, on the modern structures, the anti-fouling paints and materials are being used. But in reality, after not a very long time, maybe a year, maybe two, regardless the precautions, the settlement process will start by marine organisms. So at first, usually the biofilm will be present on the structure. It's like a slimy film on the structure. And this creates a ground for the bigger creatures like algae, anemones, mussels, corals to attach and settle. The type of organisms that will settle on the structures will depend where in the world we are. So very much on the local fauna. So I had a privilege to analyze observations recorded on the Northwest Hutton platform, which belonged to BP, and this platform was located in the North Sea. It was decommissioned in 2009. The commission of this platform was completed. However, part of that platform still remains in place. So due to its size, BP was allowed to just cut the top of the platform and remove it, and the legs are still remaining in place. So my task was to analyze the organisms which settled on that platform throughout sorry. I lost my thought. Sorry. So, so my task was to examine how communities of the protected cold coral, called Lophilia pertusa, as well as assemblages of other organisms, including fish communities, changed over time on that platform. So I was looking at the video materials from various stages of life of that platform, some from when platform was still operational, some collected during the time when the commission was happening, and some a few years after. And the conclusion could be only one, that the composition of this, that this became an artificial reef. And its composition was very similar to what would be expected on the natural coral cold water reef in that region of the world. So the impact is huge on the biodiversity. The other successful stories of turning the disused oil and gas facilities or the renewable facilities into artificial reefs can be seen in other parts of the world. For example, in Gulf of Mexico, on the coast of USA, the Rig to Reefs programs are being implemented. One of them started as Louisiana Artificial Reef Program in 1986, and this seen around 120 disused platforms being turned into over 80 artificial reefs, which are thriving. And the Texas Artificial Reef Program started in 1991, seen 35 reefs created from over 70 platforms. So those are very interesting examples, and definitely it would be good to look into that. However, in Europe, we've got OSPAR Convention, which prevents dumping anything on the seabed. It was signed by many nations, and it is to prevent just leaving rubbish in the sea. So except exceptional circumstances, like for example in the case of Northwest Hutton, it is not permitted to leave infrastructure on the seabed, even if the protected species are present. And it is the default behind this is that the species wouldn't be settling on that structure if the structure wouldn't be there in the first place. It kind of removes its protective status in that case. So this point of view meets with quite a strong opposition among many interested circles, among those the scientists. At principle, it's correct because it prevents littering of the sea. But I believe there should be more room for negotiation, especially if the vulnerable biodiverse communities are created. For example, in the UK, the research programs are run jointly by industry and academia to study the idea of connectivity between the platforms. It's called the Inside North Sea Project. Those studies explore the theory that structures in the North Sea are not independent, but create stepping stones for propagation of many species, hence influence the biodiversity. And I think that such approach could be possible in the Baltic Sea, especially now when the wind farms are on the planning stages. The monitoring programs to study the settlement on the underwater structures could be started, and the connectivity between the structures could be researched. And I think it's a fascinating opportunity to see how these structures would influence the biodiversity.
That would be a great change for the Baltic, because our seabed is either littered by weapons or a dead zone, the size of Denmark, I believe. So it would be great to give it some life and then not to extinct it by pulling the infrastructure back. Is it an academic discussion only whether to make the rules more flexible, or is something happening, say, in the European Parliament? The Commission is aware of those things?
Oh, that would be a question to the Commission, but they are definitely, strong voices from academia and industry to reconsider that approach of kind of removing everything. Hopefully, eventually, those voices will be heard, and something will move in that department. But at the moment, not very much has happened.
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed for the development going in the right direction. And thank you very much for all the insights. It's always great to hear, to look at our industry from another angle. Thank you very much, Dorota, for that. Angelica, the mission of your organization is to build a maritime tech hub that generates and supports new concepts, start and scale ups. Could you share the successes Optima-X and EnsoXL helped to bring about? But in the first place, why the idea to set up a maritime accelerator? What's different now? What's different nowadays versus how things were done and run in the past, that when we didn't have maritime accelerators?
Okay, thank you. Well, first, we're based in Athens, Greece, where Greek ship owners hold the largest percentage of the commercial fleet. Optima-X came out of Optima Shipping Services, which is a brokerage company, one of the largest globally and the largest in Greece, with offices in Shanghai, Dubai, Istanbul, and Athens. So it made at that time, back in 2018, perfect sense to launch an international maritime innovation hub in one of the largest maritime cities. So Optima-X, it's true that hosts the GEOxyz accelerator that supports startup ideas related to maritime technology, either on AI or hardware technology that needs actually huge amounts of investment. So we are really concentrated we were really concentrated when we started to form collaborations within the 5 pillars of the shipping industry, as I said, so corporates, academia, governments, regulators, investors, and entrepreneurs, as we all work to promote innovation, circular economy, and sustainability in shipping. So Optima-X, actually, and this is the difference with the past, it acts as the bridge between the traditional way of doing business and the more entrepreneurial world that is more fast-paced and decisions are taken faster than in complex structures such as the corporate companies in the shipping sector, which are also very conservative. So we needed to do that to understand both worlds, as we understand actually both worlds, and we definitely facilitate a smoother understanding and a collaborative environment. Share some successes. We have given great effort in those startups that we believed they had great potential, and we literally took them by the hand to a very demanding journey. Because it's not always easy to find piloting programs or investment funding for such initiatives, especially because investors do not understand investors globally do not understand exactly how the shipping world operates, because it's a very niche industry with a lot of terminology. So we have supported a number of very promising startups, such as optimization platforms for operational efficiency, data and satellites to make internet less expensive in deep sea. Monitoring systems to monitor all emitted gases from the engines, and how we can promote this not only in the commercial world but also on the regulatory world. So we managed to increase their client base, and we did also collaborated in more complex problems of our industry. In the industry actually that we face with joint partnerships. And I'm really looking forward for more companies to come and join us.
Great. Is the sea shipping industry or the port industry more interested in your ventures?
I can say that definitely we take more opportunities in the shipping sector, but we have also in the port sector. I think that the Green Deal has helped a lot with that, because they relate the shipping industry to the port industry, and they demand, for example, the vessels to be electrified by onshore energy. And this actually helped a lot, and the entrepreneurs have come up with several ideas about solving all these things.
Great, thanks. Magdalena, I have mentioned in your introduction that you are a member of Vista Poland, as well as I have made a gender introduction to this expert panel. Okay? If you could be so kind and bring for the main issues the organization is working, as well as your cooperation with Starter and Anna.
Well, I have the privilege to be the Vista member of the board of Vista Poland for a few years already, and our organization is aiming to promote and to help women in the maritime sector in general. It's not only shipping sector; it's the logistics, ports. Very broad scope of the maritime industry, and we conduct many meetings. We try to help each other. We carry out the networking. We cooperate, as you mentioned, with incubator, with startup, with Anna, and that's why we were able to. Some of our members took part in the mentoring process. We have mentees, which young women, which they are just in the beginning of their careers. So they have a lot of questions, and our colleagues from Vista are helping them, answering the questions, or trying, to motivate them not to be afraid and just to believe in themselves. So we also are participating in many conferences and international meetings. Right now, International Vista is a member of the IMO, so they have the observer status, but they are active there. So, well, I can invite all of the interested women, if they want, and also men as well, to support us, to take part in our activities. So you are very welcome.
Thank you, much obliged. I'm trying to pick up this issue, though it's hard for me. I want to be very delicate. I'm a white man. I don't want to offend anybody, but figures show that the transport and logistic industry at large has a low proportion of women participation. And your thoughts on the reasons behind that?
Well, I believe that traditionally, like the maritime sector, basically it was like the shipping sector, it was the port sector, was typical, let's say, men sector, and the shipyards, for example. So it has changed, and it's changing all the time, but slowly, too slow. Right now, IMO is conducting the special dedicated survey on the women in the all over the world in the sector, and we also sent out this survey through our members to forward it further. But I believe this is mainly of the based on the tradition, unfortunately. And the other thing is that I don't know why, but women don't believe in themselves. I mean, they are kind of shy, I believe, and I think they need to be more motivated. So these are my general thoughts.
Angelica, Dorota, your thoughts on women in the transport and logistics business?
Should I start, or Dorota, do you want to say?
I think I'm not in transport or logistics. I'm more in environment, so I will.
Okay.
That's throwing you, Angelica.
But maritime environment.
In a very delicate way.
Thank you. So yeah, I agree with Magdalena. It's not that women are not educated or that they don't have the skills to thrive in the shipping industry as a whole. It's that probably they are more hesitant and they need more soft skills like self-confidence and mentorship in letting them know that whatever they want, they can achieve it. I think that this is a problem.
Judging from port statistics across the Baltic, when you look at the top executive level, only a few women could be found as port managers, the top one, but we have lots and lots of splendid ladies in the middle and lower management. I think that it would be a great idea someday to bring them to the fore and for them to share the experiences. As Magdalena, you are saying that maybe gathering a wealth of knowledge, experience from the Baltic, from different cultures would be something beneficial to gather the best practices of getting more women on board our industry. I will just say that I remember one gender project from Norway, and they have pumped a lot of money into attracting women to heavy duty industries, and it was a fiasco. And not because women didn't want to be engaged in heavy duty stuff, but because it was mainly dangerous. You don't want to work in an industry which has a very high risk of losing your life or limb. So I think that if addressing the issue, it should be pinpointed. Even if you have money, it should be directed into the right way, making the employment place a safe one, not printing posters or making some street campaigns. Okay, we have about 11 minutes till our panel debates end, and I would like to end it with a sort of summary crystal ball. If you could be so kind and list, say, up to 3 on the one hand, most promising development opportunities, game changers, if you will, and on the other hand, also up to 3 threats that can seriously derail the growth prospects of the maritime industry, the environmental aspect included also. Dorota, maybe you.
Let me start. I will have. I think that all this work which is being put into developing the wind industry in Baltic Sea. This is a fantastic opportunity to meet all the green targets, to kind of to make our energy kind of supplies a little bit more friendly to the environment which we are living in. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. I hope that nothing will stop that development. As a scientist, I can see also the research opportunities here, with the connectivity studies for all the structures which will be placed on the seabed. I think this is fantastic that it's happening. It's a privilege to kind of to be part of it in a way, and I hope in 10 to 20 years we will be able to report a success story on that one at our next meeting. We'll be kind of summarizing how it affected the environment, how it affected the industry, and I hope that there will be only positives coming out of that.
Great. Any black swans on the horizon?
Oh, well.
I mean, you are portraying the offshore wind industry as a perpetuum mobile, a self-propelling industry, too big to fall. Hashtag Lehman Brothers.
Well, I think one of the concerns is the issue to be resolved with storing the energy. At the moment, you need batteries accumulators to store the energy, and those use rare metals, which are being mined often in the deep sea regions, which creates another environmental problems, who knows, if not bigger. So there is a balance to be kind of strike between where we are doing good, and in the other parts, actually to facilitate doing the good, we could be doing some harm. So a lot of thought needs to be given to the way how we resolve that issues. A lot of room here for inventors, engineers to kind of to come up with solutions to storing the energy. So actually, it is green all the way through.
Excellent, thank you. Angelica?
So I will start with the one hand. So I'll go with the opportunities. For me, a big game changer and somewhere that I think we will see more investment because it makes more sense. It's the CCS technology, so the carbon capture and storage technologies, not only in the seaborne environment, but also this is a way to decarbonize fossil fuels, either coal or oil or mines that like iron ore, and it's the fastest way actually to decarbonize the environment. And although scientists know how they can do it, they don't do it yet. Probably there are some let's say companies that trying to protect their profit margins. I'm kind, and and then I think that a big game changer and an opportunity, which I think some companies have already understood in the shipping sector, is that the potential of a changing business model. So the shipping industry working in a different business environment and with different business models than the ones that we have been used to. And all those, the other hand, those bad things that can happen, as we have summarized and we stressed out, all of us, it's problem in fundings and not enough funds to invest on those technologies, not broad collaboration and open innovation, and I would add from our side, not unified regulations and versus local.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Magdalena, please.
It's not easy to be at the end. I can only echo what my colleagues have said right now. Well, I fully agree. One of the opportunities, this really is, especially in Poland right now, rapidly growing this offshore wind farm market. And this is something that is already in place, and it's in the visible, like feasible future right now. The other thing, which I also wanted to mention, that Angelica mentioned, is the CCS projects. We are also working on this right now. We have this in near future. We have the project of the experimental mine on one of our B3 oil field. So thanks to this, we would be able to test our existing infrastructure and to also answer to some questions and proceed with further projects. But anyway, these projects and like new innovative solutions are really the opportunity. And on the other hand, the threats, first of all, funding and macroeconomic situation, which we know that it can change also rapidly. So funds in general, as Angelica said. And the other thing, what I can think of is legislative, like some obstacles. Right now we have the law in place, but anyway, sometimes it has to be like more flexible. It has to be up to date to the global situation, let's say. So these are two main threats to these solutions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I would say after the late Steve Jobs that it is about connecting the dots and doing it right. The threat would be just smudging all the place and investing in things that will get us nowhere. Angelica, Magdalena, Dorota, a massive thank you and a bigger round of applause. Thank you very much. And please stick around. We have the third segment on hydrogen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, another break is upon us. Please tune in again on 1500 CET. Thank you.